Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Vital Ground's first fall webinar of the season. My name is Matt Hart. I'm the Communications Director for the Vital Ground Foundation, and I am honored to be joined tonight by my colleague Kim Davitt, our Development Director, and by our wonderful co-founder and current trustee, Lynne Seus. So we'll just take another moment or two for folks to join as we see numbers streaming in over the internet. It's terrific to see a bunch of familiar names popping up and to know there are so many more of you that we haven't met yet joining. And we're just delighted to have you here to listen to some stories from Lynn and get a good bit of bear talk and a little bit of inspiration for the work we're doing to protect habitat. So a couple of just housekeeping items for the evening. We'll turn things over to Lynn very shortly and hear some great stories from her wonderful memoir called The Grizzlies and Us. Um, as Lynn is talking, you will be able to ask a question via the chat function. Um, and we will do a brief Q&A after Lynn's presentation is done. So type out your questions using that chat function, and Kim will be keeping an eye on that along with me. And we will ask some of those questions for Lynn at the end. Um, we're using the Zoom webinar format, so that does the Q&A through the chat rather than folks turning their sound on or anything. So that will be how to participate in the Q&A. But for now, I invite you to just sit back and enjoy some good story time. So yeah, we'll get this going. I'm just delighted to introduce Lynn. We've had a few book-related events already, but this is the first time we've done a webinar like this that is open to our whole group of far-flung bear lovers all over the country and the world. And so it's really great to get Lynn's story out to anyone who's joining us. And I think it's just a great story for anyone who loves conservation, anyone who knows vital ground, but also anyone who's just interested in the unique twists and turns that human life can take. Because boy, Lynn, you have lived a singular life, and it's such a treat to read about it in your book and to know you through our wonderful work together with Vital Ground. Um, for those of you who are maybe just learning about Vital Ground and the Seuses, you are probably aware that Bart the Bear was the original inspiration for Vital Ground. Bart was a Kodiak grizzly that Doug and Lynn adopted in 1977, who went on to a larger-than-life career acting in movies under the careful guidance of his beloved human trainers, Doug and Lynn. And Vital Ground was started now 35 years ago. So happy anniversary to everyone who's been a part of it. Many of you longer than I have, probably. Um, but 35 years ago, Vital Ground was started to make Bart's life matter beyond the movies, to give back to wild grizzlies and to protect habitat for all the creatures who share the grizzly bear's range here in the Northern Rockies. And so Lynn's story, her book, The Grizzlies and Us, chronicles many of the adventures Doug and Lynn had with Bart, but also with Bart 2, who followed in 2000. I believe he was adopted, and many other animals that Doug and Lynn trained. And it tells the story of starting Vital Ground as well. Um, so it's a great book. I would really encourage any of you who haven't read it yet to go ahead and get a copy. You can buy it on our website. by clicking the shop button at vitalground.org, and that will make sure the money you spend on it directly supports our work. And holiday giving season is coming up too. So it's a great story, as some of you I'm sure know, having already read it. But we're delighted to have Lynn here to tell some stories and read or paraphrase some portions of the book. And just by way of introduction, I'll give one quote that our friend and the great author Rick Bass from Montana wrote about the book and about Lynn. Rick said, "To read The Grizzlies and Us is to peer more closely into old lessons of respect, humility, creativity, passion, and a fuller understanding of how brightly we, the living, connected by deep intimacy and knowledge, can burn." So, with that, I will turn it over to our co-founder, Lynne Seus.
Thank you. I'll start with two of the questions we are asked more than any other question. How did you get started? And how did you get Bart? We got started when my husband, Doug Seuss, said, "Do you want to get a wolf instead of a dog?" And it was about 1975. And I think I said, "Far out." And so, uh, in the course of that, we were able to attain a USDA exhibitor's license, which means we were inspected by Zoo Vet to make sure the enclosures were clean and safe. There was plenty of exercise room. And so, starting with the USDA, we were able to go on a website called AAZPA. And right there, waiting for us, was a 6-pound Kodiak bear cub. Now, at the same time, we had just had our daughter, Sasha. So for about one day, they both weighed 6 pounds. But so that kind of goes back to how we got our beloved Bart and the work he did for the Vital Ground Foundation. But uh, it's almost like I get little warmies thinking about him. But I'll start today with a chapter from the book that is a lot of people's favorite. So we were visited by an aspiring photographer named Fred Donner. He asked if he might visit us in Utah and photograph our wolves and cougars and Bart. The role he had in mind for Bart was in a mountain stream in the beautiful morning light. It was a perfect dawn in early May. The sky was lime green, making its way to turquoise. The forecast of the day was for 72. Newborn leaves were tender on the mountains, and the mountains held on to their snowy blanket. Bart was in the process of shedding. His glossy legs were as glossy as otter fur, and his coat was still golden blonde from our high desert sun. Backlit by the morning sun, he glowed in rimfire. We drove up to Mirror Lake Highway to find the perfect spot. We pulled Bart's trailer into the curling water, and the breeze from the river smelled like new moon, hay, and watermelon. We backed Bart's trailer up into by the river, and we've always set up safety wires. So I said to Doug, we better set a safety wire in front of those rapids. He said, we don't need a safety wire there. They're running way too fast. Well, we pulled Bart's trailer, and he pulled up his legs and floated away like a giant furry rabbit. There was no time for me to say, I told you so. We grabbed Bart's walking chain and bags of marshmallows and proceeded to be in frantic pursuit. At the bend in the river, there he was waiting for us. Oh, thank God. But as soon as we made eye contact, he bounced back into the rapids and again floated away like a raft with bear's ears, looking over his shoulder to make sure we were following. At the next bend, we saw a fly fisherman fleeing in terror. His waders were flapping in the breeze, abandoning an expensive fly rod and gear on the bank. There was no way to explain, even if we could have. The water wide and slower at the next bend. A log jam glistened against the wet boulder. Bart clambered aboard for a rest, and just as if on cue, Doug made his way onto the uprooted ponderosa pine, marshmallows in hand. Doug pulled himself into the pine, saying, "Come on, good boy, come on." And as if on cue, Doug bounced on the man's log like a child playing chopsticks on a piano. The man, who had not listened to his wife, did an impressive cannonball back into the river. I could swear I could see this bear smiling. Shivering legs purple, we went upstream a bit, and there he was on the bank, making sure we were following. He was totally unconcerned with the fisherman 20 yards behind him. He was totally used to people and had no reason to dislike him. Unfortunately, there was no way we could have explained that, even if we could have. And when he saw two crazed humans charging after the bear, he escaped into the woods, bonking his head on the low-lying branch. Reassured of our pursuit, Bart plunged back into the river. This was an Olympic event. Slowly and winding, the river was dotted with small islands. By now, Bart was getting as tired as we were. He pulled himself into a patch of green, but something was wrong, terribly wrong. He held up his paw for us to see. The island was blanketed with Canadian thistles. He looked at us with the droopy eyes of a St. Bernard puppy. He pleaded for rescue, and under our breath we said, "You little shithead." Not pressing our luck, Doug and I wrapped his walking chain around his neck and proceeded into the stand of Doug firs. Bart was happy to be on the soft, duff pine floor, and he was actually, he felt spunky, like a dog after a bath. Now, Doug is strong, but he's no match for a 1,400-pound bear. Totally out of Mount Marshall, we attached one of the walking chains to a sturdy tree and dug a snap link to it, and we sat down to catch our breath. The day grew warmer, and we were grateful for it, for it dried our clothes, but it also continued to warm Bart, who kept glancing at the cool, rumbling river, at the rapids dashing over the rocks. We had to keep moving, but what if he made another dash for the river? I had an idea born out of desperation. The thistles grew on unruly branches in the damp spring soil. I used a rock to break the tender roots free, marched right up to Bart and bonked him on the head with them. Now, we both knew, but didn't want to say it out loud. The truck and trailer were on the other side of the river. After what seemed to be suspended time and space, we saw the trailer waiting for us at the launch spot of our adventure. The photographer and his assistant were opening the picnic lunch. We yelled for them, dump the picnic basket on the bank and hold the ginger snaps up and shake them. He followed us to the other side of the river, and with the biting slower water, the smell of ginger snaps and molasses were impossible to resist. Um, sorry. Um, Now we had made landfall with the rewards of ham sandwiches and ginger snap. I dropped the thistles and ran to the back of the truck where we kept grapes and apples. Doug hopped into his trailer as if nothing had ever happened and laid down to munch on his grapes. We opened our eyes as we collapsed on the ground to see the photographer looking down at us. Gee, Fred, we said, we're sorry we didn't get your shot. We'll nail it for you tomorrow. I didn't need to say anything to Doug about setting up a wire on three sides of the river. Okay. One more quick page. This was about a movie we did called The Bear. We did that in northern Italy and southern Austria. It was amazing 6 months adventure. And this is a little um, one page from that. It turned out to be the wettest, coldest summer in northern Italy for years. The sky was always touching the ground. And somehow the Dolomites held on to they reached for the sky. Miserina, Dogalita Caledo, Arena, Bombapitiporero, and a tiny village called Sortea. Beyond that, there were just hiking trails. We pulled Bart's trailer. Bart's trailer was pulled by Unimog, a small army tank-like contraption. We reached the majestic white peaks that were so high, one had to strain to see their mountaintop. Then came a moment that had absolutely nothing to do with the film. The art director, Yuri, and I were stuffing strawberry jam into sausage caging to serve as entrails for the stag that Bart had killed. Since there was Suddenly, there was a commotion on the next ride. The crew and alpine hikers were gathered around some sort of wondrous sight. We ran to see what the spectacle might be. There, on the stone outcropping, was a marmot. I said, "Oh, for Pete's sake, Yuri, that's just a marmot." He looked at me very seriously and said, "You don't understand, Lynn. That's all we have left." That night, I sat alone with Bart, and I told him I didn't know how or when or how, but I promised him his life in our human world had to matter for something much more than movies. Our Rocky Mountains were still so wildly alive. Thank you.
Wow, thanks, Lynn. Such great stories there. I'm gonna change the view here. So we are just gonna jump into the Q&A a little bit, and if folks want to type out questions, they can, or it looks like you can click the button saying raise hand, and then I can open it up for folks to ask a question that way as well. And I'm seeing one hand up from a very special individual, I believe. We've got Kelly. I think that's Kelly Johnson, our board chair. So I'm going to open it up for Kelly. Yeah, hi, Kelly. It's a little choppy,
Hi,
but I can hear
we're
you.
not sure if you can hear us or not, but Keith is here as well, and he had a question for me.
Keith, Kelly, unfortunately, it's very garbled. We can't quite hear enough to make out what the question is.
Something's happening where he is.
I'm going to let you guys see if you can improve it at all. We've got a couple questions coming in via the Q&A chat. So if you guys could also type the question
Add the
out
rest of
there.
that. I don't know if it's working or not. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, Kelly. Keith was more garbled.
So,
All right. We'll come back to Kelly and Keith potentially. In the meantime, we got one question that came in via the chat, Lynn.
can you hear us now?
It's still pretty choppy, Kelly. We're gonna move on to another question, but we will come back to you and try again in a little bit, and you can also type out a question. Um, so Lynn, one of the attendees, Franny Grill, just wanted to know a little bit more about how you train Bart, some of the training methods that you use.
Well, um, it was all reward and affection. So we had, for films, you had a thing called a point rock, and it was just a flat rock, just in this case, red sandstone. And so when he would um, put his paws on that rock, cookies would fall out of the sky, and we'd say point. And they're so smart. I mean, so smart that it took about one or two repetition. And then on film, we would just say, go to your point. And then he would hit his point, and the cameras would roll. And then we could ask him to do his other behaviors. And I'll tell you, bears, I think, are smarter than we are. So it was just ask him to do it, ask him to sit, ask him to wave, ask him to lay down. It was all met with the reward of cookies and love.
That's great. Yeah, positive reinforcement. We have
Yeah.
another question from Scott wondering how Bart traveled to Europe.
Oh, well, that's an interesting question. It was, we went down to Los Angeles, and they had a big 747, and it was a forklift. So they would put the forklift up and put it back into the back of this big cargo jet. And once he got in there, it was cool, it was quiet, and he absolutely just went to sleep. we had Gatorade and granola bars. So we tried, wake him up. Did you want something to eat? No, he just went back to sleep. And then we got to Europe. Actually, we went to Frankfurt and then had to take a different trailer and go back down through, oh my goodness, Frankfurt, France, Spain, and got him to Europe that way.
Quite the saga. All right. Well, we heard granola bars in there, I think. We had another question from Crystal. What were some of Bart's favorite foods?
He loved fruit, and the mainstay of his diet was chicken thighs. And chicken, raw chicken, of course, is a very healthy food. The bones are calcium, the flesh is protein, and the skin is fat. And so they just thrived on it. We never fed red meat because of parasite. So just chicken thighs and and fruit. Now, mind you, he didn't like vegetables except for carrots. I've got a little Bart story. He hated tomato. And we used to play a game, Bart and I. I'd roll a tomato in his cage. He'd wait for me to come back out. He'd keep his eye on me. When I came back to cage, he'd take that tomato and he'd try to smash me with it. But yes, such wonderful memories.
That's great. Um, okay. We've got let's we've got Alicia who's raised her hand. So Alicia, we're gonna try to let you ask your question here.
Hi guys, are you able to hear me?
We
Yeah.
are.
Beautiful. To be honest with you, my question is more so just an acknowledgement. So I just wanted to say that I'm tuning in from Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. And I'm blessed to live in such a location where I get to go down to the local rivers and see bears fishing during spawning season and film them, and it brings such joy to my life. So, what I would like to simply say to you, Lynn, is thank you for all of the efforts that you and your husband have put forth over the years. I'm a 27-year-old woman, and for the entirety of my life, you and your husband have been a part of some of the biggest viewing pleasures in my household. We literally had a VHS tape of a Bart feature on TV that we would watch over and over as a child. And it really has warmed my heart to be able to just be here tonight and to share in the moment. God has blessed us with you and your husband's efforts over the years. In fact, it's actually a scriptural concept. When speaking of heavenly thoughts of the wolf laying down with the lamb, it actually refers to the cattle and the bear feeding together. And it's a very heavenly thought. And you guys have been able to give us a foretaste of such a heavenly, peaceful relationship that I believe we were meant to have with these animals. And we respect them as wild creatures here, but I look forward to a day when that barrier doesn't have to be there. So I just want to say God bless you and Doug. We love you guys and thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. We appreciate that. Well, we're going to keep it in the Seuss family with the next one. Melanie Seuss would like to know, or rather, her 7-year-old, who you might be familiar with, Lynn, wants to know what your favorite part of the book is.
Oh, um, Kellen, thank you, dear. Probably the funny part about the river romp and how, you know, and Vital Ground, of course, Vital Ground. And some of the movies we did, and just in a nutshell, some of the, you know, I'll just go ahead and use the word movie stars that stepped up for Vital Ground. Brad Pitt, Anthony Hopkins, Jennifer Aniston, they all gave their voice to Vital Ground and to the Wild Ones. So I just, um, I am in awe of those people that had had a lot better things to do, probably movies and what have you, but were there when we started Vital Ground.
That's great. We've got a question from Dale Becker, one of our board members, who's wondering when you first got the bear cubs, or maybe the wolves, I think, did they still need to be bottle fed?
Oh, great question, Dale. Absolutely. That's how you start because, um, you know, they were all taken as cubs and and not from their mothers, but actually from their mothers, because the only way you can uh, get a wild animal to love you and respect you is you become the mother substitute. You have the baby bottle, you cuddle them, you hold them, you sleep with them, and that's how, these wild animals became part of our family and very easy to work with on movie set.
Terrific. Amy is wondering, Lynn, the bears, if your bears ever went into hyperphagia, if they got hungry in the fall, the way that wild bears do when they're loading calories for winter. So, did that ever happen, and how did you handle it?
With a lot of food because yes, they do hyperphagia. And so we increase the food and we have a big pasture and so they can graze and and um, they eat grass like a bear biologist could tell you they graze like a cow. So yeah, just extra food, extra fruit, and we don't do very many carbohydrate, but a few, just a few, like, maybe some bread now and then, but mainly just chicken and a lot of it.
And I think a follow-up question to that, Lynn, would just for me would be, what about hibernation? What were the bears doing in the winter?
Well, uh, our bears, because dinner is served at 5 o'clock every night, they don't really hibernate. Although, if anyone's been here, the bears have big den boxes and we fill it full of grass hay. So they make themselves, if you will, a giant bird nest and back into it, like kind of like we would get into a sleeping bag and pull the hay, grass hay and alfalfa back over the top of them. But like I said, they know dinner's coming, so they don't really, in that sense, hibernate.
Great. And I have heard that it's not 100% of bears in the wild who actually hibernate, that if they can access food through the winter months, some bears won't go into the full deep sleep in the den. Um, and even when they're in the den, I should say, putting on my nature nerd hat, they're not deep asleep the whole time. They get up and move around and all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, one more question from Franny for you, Lynn. Was there ever a time when Bart or one of the other bears became aggressive or scared you with their strength?
Uh, Not really. I think because they were bottle fed and loved, but I'm not disrespecting their strength. I mean, um, we just they've never really challenged us like that. But I've seen them, you know, pick up logs like this and carry them around like they were tinker toys. So I do totally respect their strength. But being, held and cuddled as a baby, I I don't think not that we didn't disrespect him, but the basis is, I guess it's called affection. And I don't know how else to put it.
Great. We've got another hand raised, and that's, I think, Beth Lendrum. So I'm gonna uh, allow Beth to talk here.
Hi, Beth.
Hi, Lynn. I had to laugh when you were telling the story about when you first got Bart as an infant at 6 pounds and Sasha was at 6 pounds. When we did our trip to Mexico for Gail Stevens' 60th birthday, we were so fortunate. I mean, that's how I met you, was through wonderful Gail.
Yes.
And I swear to goodness, when we were sitting around the table one night, you shared the story that you accidentally brought Bart up onto your chest versus Sasha at night. and we're giving the cuddles. And I swear I didn't dream that, but it just made me laugh. And it just proved how much the affection and the love and the cuddles created the lifetime relationship that you've had with all of your animals and all your friends too.
Oh, thank you, Beth. Yeah, and Sasha was 6 pounds, and I think I mentioned this, Bart was 6 pounds, and then Sasha stayed 6 pounds, and Bart just, but yeah, thank you, Beth, for that. Thank
Well,
you.
the other thing that I wanted to say, and this, I don't want this to sound like an infomercial, but we're not all as fortunate as Alicia, who lives on Vancouver Island and 27 years old and feels so blessed by all that she has gotten to see in her short life. I want to encourage people, whoever is on this call, whoever has not done it, to do the Night Inlet trip. It is the most magical. I took my daughter after my father died. Doug Chadwick was there. We spread his ashes. Orcas came through the inlet. I mean, it was phenomenal. And then I took husband Jerome and friends well, it was in 23, I guess. Um, and I can't think of a time that I have enjoyed more in my life than those trips that are educational. You come away feeling so profoundly, I don't, it's just mystical. It is magical. It is, and the staff, all of the people are so incredibly knowledgeable, and the stories that they share, it's better than any camp I went to as a kid.
No, thank you, Beth, so much.
Beth, that's a great infomercial, and it sounded better than an infomercial. But thank you for bringing that up, and for all of you, whether you've heard of this Night Inlet trip or not before, mark your calendars, October 15 to 20 next year. So just under a year from now, we will be going back to Night Inlet with Vital Ground, and you'll get plenty of emails and other updates about how to reserve your spot and learn more about that opportunity. But I would certainly reiterate what Beth said, that it is a fantastic, amazing, once in a lifetime experience up there at a really first class um, operation at the lodge where you can see wild bears living their lives. Um, and Kim is leading that trip, and you can contact her directly if you're interested and want to learn more right away after tonight. So you can send Kim an email, kdavitt@vitalground.org. Okay, looking back at a few more questions. We had one that I skipped over before from Jack. This one may be a little tongue-in-cheek, but wondering if the best way to see a grizzly in the wild is to carry a can of kippered herring.
Oh,
And he thanks you for an amazing book.
that's Jack Knoll. Yeah.
I
How
thought you might
about,
recognize the question.
oh, yeah. Harry is a naturalist. But, if he hadn't brought it up, I'd never narked on you, Jack. But we're sitting there, and he opens up some sardines, and here's a grizzly just kind of waltzing on by. But, Jack, what a memory. What a friend you are.
Sounds like a great story. Corey Stephenson is wondering, Lynn, what Honeybump and Tank are up to, and what any other animals that you and Doug still have.
Um, we just have Honey Bump and Tank, and they're doing well. I mean, they're like Pop and I, or Doug and I, getting up there, but they're healthy. They enjoy life. And we're so fortunate to have Daniels Creek run through our property so they can get out and swim. We have 15 acres and back that they can graze. So they're just this time of year, though, about now, they hunker down, just about now. But they get up in the morning. They want bagels.
And it's just the two of them, but I know you have a few grandkids running around pretty frequently too. So
Yeah.
no shortage of traffic at the Seuss household.
No, we have 7 beautiful grandchildren. Faith and Cash are grown, but yeah, I'll tell you, the doors never close, the fridge is never closed, and the cookie jar is never closed. But it's wonderful.
Well, that's great. Okay, well, any other questions? Go ahead and send them in or raise your hand if you'd like to ask them. We had a couple folks, Lynn, just send in words of admiration. Sandra and Franny sent a nice message too. They both are just appreciating your gentleness and sending virtual hugs. So we thank you all for those kind words too. Well, Kelly, I might turn it over to you if we can hear you a little better this time.
Yes, I think you'll be able to hear us better now. I think
That's
what happened
great.
is my microphone somehow jumped to my laptop. So I apologize to everybody for that little lapse of technology. But Lynn, what a wonderful evening and amazing book that you've written. And for those that have not got it, make sure you get it. Send it out to your friends for Christmas. It's just one that stays with you. It's such a lovely, happy book. And I've been with Vital Ground for 28 years, and I'll tell you, like Alicia in Vancouver Island, stay with us. Vital Ground will be in your heart. It never goes away, and you will be amazed at where it will take you if you follow us and get involved. It will take you places you never thought you could go, and meet the people you never thought you could meet. And it is a godsend again to me too. And the staff is phenomenal. We're just so blessed, and I'm blessed with all the people that have joined tonight. It really is a family, and it is really for the future generations that we're doing this. And that's what Vital Ground is all about. We're protecting land for the bears, but it's really more about protecting future generations' ability to see these beautiful creatures and all the other creatures that walk with them. And so thank you very much, Lynn. Thank you everyone for joining us. So sorry I get emotional as well, because it's Vital Ground has been such an important part of my life, and it always will be. And I have to thank Lynn and Doug Seuss for that to have the vision to give back to the Wild Brothers. There's nothing they could have done that was better. People could have gone away and said, well, I'm going to make all this money through the movies and, extort all these bears. They didn't. They had a vision to give back to the wild bears, and that is taken us to a place where we protected almost 1,000,000 acres or over 1,000,000 acres, and it's just an amazing journey. And I'm very proud, very, very proud to be part of this organization.
And especially for tonight, Lynne and Doug are some of the world's most spectacular people, and we love you a great deal.
I love you more.
You're so sweet. And Matt, thank you for doing a fabulous job. And Kim behind the scenes, you guys, this is tremendous. We had a spectacular 35th anniversary in Park City about 3 weeks ago. It was an amazing event. And for those of you that didn't make it, we'll probably have another one in 5 years' time or less. We'll see. But if you can join us on any of those anniversaries, please do, because it's a very, very wonderful event. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Kelly. We appreciate that. And folks, do stay tuned. There will be some events closer to home for Montana folks coming up. We do occasionally offer what we call walks on vital ground, where members of our community can visit projects if it's something that they can do. And we have plenty of more opportunities coming up to stay engaged with Vital Ground as part of our ongoing 35th anniversary. Um, the next one, like this, is going to be a book reading with a really wonderful woman, Diane Boyd, a longtime wolf biologist who's written a wonderful book that I can't wait to read all of. And so Diane will give a book talk on December 10th, 6 p.m. as well for that one. So be sure you mark your calendar there. We also have a special video from our 35th anniversary celebration that's up on the YouTube now. So that's Vital Ground's YouTube channel, youtube.com/for the Grizzly. Would certainly encourage everyone to watch that, and you'll get a great look into the history of the organization and what we're up to these days as we continue to protect habitat and follow the wise words of Lynn and make the earth more healthy and whole by saving places where the grizzly can walk. So just a couple of other things in the chat I'm seeing to touch on. One person was wondering about buying the book on Amazon versus Vital Ground. We certainly will not judge you for buying it whatever way works best for you. But if you do buy it on Vital Ground's website, then all of the proceeds will support our work. So we would love to have you do it that way.
Every penny.
Great. One question was asking about, I think, the video. Again, the video is on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/for the Grizzly. And that's just a short film we put together about the 35-year history of Vital Ground. Lynn, we did have one more question that came in that if you want to take one more, it was wondering about the larger relationship between the rest of your family and Bart, your kids and Bart. What was it like juggling all those different bodies?
It was complicated. No, it was, my goodness, our daughter, she has wolves, and Jed, he's a cinematographer and just, married to the world's most beautiful, lovely woman, and, two beautiful sons, and Sasha has three, and talk about blessed, beyond blessed.
Yeah. And we got a nice note just now from your sister Lisa and niece Christy, who
Oh,
say, "We love you, Lynn, and admire your work in this book, life, and how you've shared it with all of us."
Lisa, I miss you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, what a nice note to start wrapping things up on. Again, Lynn, thank you so much for sharing the stories tonight. And thanks to everyone for taking an hour to join us here and build a little community. Like Kelly alluded to, Vital Ground is really lucky to have just such amazing people surrounding it, from my coworkers on the staff to our board of trustees to all of you as supporters, whether you've been with the organization for decades or have just learned about us and are still getting acquainted. We are really grateful for all of you who support our work. Um, and we will certainly be sending emails and letters your way as the year wraps up. We've got some great projects that are nearing completion, some really important habitat we're working to protect as quickly as we can, and we'll get those news stories out to you as well as more fun updates from the Seuses and new videos. And of course, for those of you who are on social media, give us a follow on those channels, Instagram and Facebook, and you'll get the latest from everything we're up to. And I will just take a look, see if any last questions have come in. Okay, well, Lynn, any parting thoughts you'd like to share before we sign off for the evening?
Just thank you. Thank you to the Vital Ground supporters, to our amazing staff, and amazing, I do mean that, and to all the Vital Ground members. I don't even know how to express the gratitude. And in the name of all things from bears to butterflies to bird, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Lynn. We would not be here without you and Doug and Bart. So we appreciate everyone joining us again. And for those who couldn't make it, if you know someone who would like to hear the recording of this, we will be posting a recording of the webinar here tonight on that same Vital Ground YouTube channel. And we hope to see many of you on the 10th for the webinar with Diane Boyd, December 10th, again, the date for that one. And we hope to hear from you on the phone, over email. Feel free to get in touch with our staff, and we appreciate everyone's support over the years and in the future. We couldn't do the work we do without so many of you chipping in what you can. So thank you so much. And Lynn, again, thanks so much for sharing the stories with us and for starting this whole adventure in the first place.
Yeah. And I didn't do it alone. There's this crazy man. Oh, I mean that with all the love I can.
Of
Thank you.
course, we
Thank
know we love Doug as well. And thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Lynn. And we will see you for the next one with Diane Boyd on December 10th.
Thank you.